Hello, everyone. So thank you for coming today. Um, while everyone kind of comes through, I'm going to introduce the panel and tell you a little about what is going to go on today. I think we have a pretty powerhouse panel in front of us today. Um, there is a ton of knowledge that we're ready to share with you. It's a very conversational format up here. Um, we're going to do a little bit of Q&A at the very end of it. I wanted to thank Ruth Casper for organizing this and asking me to moderate. Uh, Everyone on the stage I respect greatly. It's a really big honor for me to be sitting on the stage with you all. Um, and what do you say we meet the panel, everyone? So out of the gate, we have Ruth Casper. Uh, Ruth is interior designer since '97. Her studio is in the Michigan Design Center. So if you haven't checked that out, you should swing over there and take a look at that. Uh, she went to Syracuse University in New York for the interior architecture program. She has numerous design awards. She's been featured in a number of publications, worked with many photographers, two of which are on this stage. Um, and anyone that knows Ruth knows she has a big heart. She understands and cares about people. And I think combining this with being a true creative lends really well in creating spaces with a ton of heart. Um, that connects really well when styling spaces for the camera lens as well too, which is often very different than how we're living in a space. So I've seen her in action, taking a seemingly quiet space and bringing life into it and evoking motion um, with the appropriate styling. So thank you for being here and sharing with us today. Uh, I should have been scanning through these, by the way, so you guys can see some of her work on this stuff. But these are some shoots that we've done. See, there we are. There's Beth. This is a beautiful shoot. So Beth Singer, sitting next to her. If you're in this room, you very likely know Beth's name. And if you don't, I guarantee you have at least seen her work over the years. Since the inception of the Detroit Design Awards, Beth has been synonymous with the biggest names in our community in the design scene, and the winners of so many different awards and publications. She has had a huge hand in elevating Detroit designers and our design scene as a whole since the early '90s. She has landed 50 plus national and local publication covers in her career. She's been a great mentor, a friend, and an inspiration to me and so many other photographers in the space. Um, her, yeah, critiques, anecdotes, and help that she's given me over the years. Um, it's allowed me to be a better steward for my clients and their work as well too. So thank you so much, Beth, for everything that you've done and that you continue to do. And thank you for being here with us today. Erica Harrison. From Grosse Pointe to New York and then back to Grosse Pointe, she's a graduate of the Parsons School of Design in New York. Um, through the photography program, which landed her in to a job at a private vintage clothing showroom in Soho. She was a stylist for J. Crew for a number of years. Worked with Ralph Lauren on curating environments to inspire storytelling through curations. I'm going to say that again.
Ralph Lauren.
A number of years there curating environments to inspire storytelling through these curations. So she's back in Michigan now. She's renovated a few early 1900s historic homes. Um, and through that process, it always retains the integrity of the architecture and the history of the homes. And she keeps storytelling very much alive through this process. Some of the stuff on screen you can see are projects that she's worked on, um, featured in a number of publications as well. We're very lucky to have Erica back in Michigan and on today's panel. Thank you for being here with us, Erica.
Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. And by the way, as we go through this and we start getting into the conversational points, if you want to reference any of these photos, I have a clicker and I can scan back to any of this stuff. And I have a lot of your beautiful work up here. So on to me. I'm Joseph Tiano. I'm an interiors photographer for the past 6 years. I help designers and craftspeople by capturing their finished projects for award submissions and publications and portfolio use. Um, for the past few years, I've been a fairly regular occurrence with Our Detroit, shooting many of their I Need My Space features, which focuses on prominent members and spaces in our design community. Newly, I'm part of the MDC Resource Center. Excited to be here and getting more involved and active in our community for things like this. And now we're going to get into the meat of it. Cool? Yeah. Okay. So we broke this apart into when you're reaching the end of a project and it's time for you to bring a photographer in and capture the space. Um, we broke it into 4 different steps. We're going to make it really simple on us. We're going to start with step one, and you're nearing the end of a project. You have a rough idea what you want to get photographed, and it's time to select a photographer. So I'll look to the panel here. What do you think are some great moves when starting the process of selecting a photographer for your project?
Yeah, the mics are on.
Mics are on.
Button on the bottom.
I'll start. I think one of the first things that I think of is if it's the timeline. Am I contacting if as I'm approaching, and I know ETAs are going to be installation, am I contacting my photographer in time so that they can get on the schedule? We can meet ahead, maybe do a walkthrough and get the process started. Because it's so many times you think of after the fact of booking your photographer. And at that point, then the customer has already kind of lived in the space or they've almost moved on from the process. So to try to capture it like at the end of the job as soon as possible, but contact your photographer way ahead of time.
Absolutely.
Sometimes, like during the design process, I have like sent pictures to the photographer, been like, what do you think of this? And, just to see what he is thinking photography wise. And there's been instances where he's like, you know what, that room looks awesome. That looks amazing. But maybe those chairs need to be like switched out to give like a new look. Cause remember, we shot X, Y, and Z last time. I think they're also like a good gauge. Just if you have like, when you get a photographer that you start using, and you'll probably have like a few that you really like, you'll have a relationship with them and a repertoire and a comfort level. And then you kind of embed on like the creativity of finally shooting your space together, because they're helping you elevate the space as well by providing an elevation of beauty in the photography. So for me, I like to involve the photographer a little earlier as well, just to like put things off of, or so they might say, well, when is it flowering, or when do you think you should, when would the client like to see it photographed, or there's like a nice way to involve them in the creative process of photography.
Mm-hmm.
I'll go a step backwards. I'm
Yeah.
gonna assume you don't have a photographer and you're gonna look for one to start working with. I recommend that you get some names from other people, other designers that have worked with photographers. Select 3 or 4. Really look at their portfolio and their style to see if it matches what you're looking for. Some designers want a lifestyle look. Some people want a accurate look of the room. So pick 3, get references, and interview way ahead, maybe 6 months, just to get familiar and give yourself enough time to go through the process and pick the right person.
I go with what she said.
Yeah, absolutely. There's an alignment there, and everyone has a little bit of a different look. Just like if you're going to hire a contractor for something, you're not going to just grab the first person. You're going to get referrals. And for some reason, it's an often overlooked thing in this part of the process. But like Erica was saying, this is the time that everyone kind of stands on the shoulders of each other and elevates the work up. You said some really cool stuff about that. But yes, beautiful stuff. Anything else? I think, I think that's good for selecting a photographer. Let's move on to step 2 of this stuff. So we're talking about clarifying the project scope, and this is where we spend a little bit more time, I think. We have a photographer lined up. You're tightening up what you're shooting, and you're identifying the needs of the project. Panel, what do you think are good steps when you're talking at this point of the project, about how you make decisions on what you need to shoot and what you should be doing during this process? Property walkthroughs, maybe, taking a look at the property, trying to figure out what you want to be shooting, stuff in that zone.
I would highly, highly recommend doing a walkthrough. And also in building the portfolio, if you know you have a lot of kitchens, but you don't have that many master bedrooms, maybe you start selecting your projects to show different looks and different styles. And also if there's a competition or perhaps a publication that you want to get in, then the walkthrough is critical. You as a designer might be way too close to the project to even determine what is a great shot or
Yeah.
what's needed. So definitely a team effort with your photographer and perhaps a stylist or.
I think that's a great point, Beth. You have, us as the designers are looking at the lens from a different way than how the picture will turn out. And so it's a huge collaboration between you and your photographer to decide, even the angles of the chairs, the angle of furniture, what accessories I'm going to bring to the job site, how many flowers, how many different looks do you want to do one room 2 different ways? Do you want to tell a story through the whole house? So, clarifying the vision of also, is this for social media? Is this going to be on your website? All of those will have a different feel and a different way that we have to lay it out. But I think for me as a designer, the main thing is like really leaning on my photographer and being open to their advice, because they will know the lighting better than I would for the publication and how it's going to look in an overall feature.
That brings me to an interesting point of the lighting. So a lot of times when people do it, you like schedule a time, you're like, this is the time I should shoot it. This is the time I've opened, blah, blah, blah. That's, you carry on and do the photo shoot. But instead of during the duration of the project, actually take the time to like look at the light of different times of the day, because if you're going for a specific mood and you want something that's a little bit more conceptual and not just, straight and narrow, you might want it to be shot at a certain time of the day. Like you might want the magic hour at the end. Like a sunroom of mine shoots much better in the afternoon than it would in the morning. Lights everything, lights everything. And so it's really important that you take a moment to pay attention to what the light is for what mood you want. Because at the end of the day, your imagery, it's advertising for yourself. It's marketing. You're marketing your vibe, your look you want. And light, everything has to do with that, which is, the flowers involving the photographers in all that aspect, like early on. But one of the things that I really do that helps me is a concept board. I have running concept boards for just flowers I love, lighting I love. And you could just have that and bring it, show the photographer, I have this, like, what do you think? Do you think this would maybe like go with this photo shoot that we're doing, or like this space? But it's important to just like keep up with like something that you can visually show people, because sometimes it's really hard to describe it to people because it's in your mind, you can't not necessarily have something that's tactile, but just constantly kind of keep up with something that you have as flowers that you love, if it's an organic look or if it's more traditional, or just make sure you keep that in your Rolodex.
Even the vibe of like, if you're setting a table, do you want a gathering look? Do you want every place setting, every napkin, every silverware? Do you want it more formal? Do you want nuts in the bowl, or do you want apples and lemons? Or, all of that is the vision board is a great idea. Just to have that in your back pocket, like what is the full scope of the feel of the room, and like the essence, when you look at that photo, do you want it to feel like a hug? Do you want it to feel like the party's going on?
I also think you have to look at current trends and looks and styles. Like years ago, it was, you had to lifestyle a whole kitchen and have a theme about what are we making today? Or your flowers, if they're too tight or too loose, what's the current trend, and then project even 5 years from there. Because if you're publishing, you are shooting, say, 2 months from now, and you might not be published for 3 years until
Yeah.
there's a slot. Also, you have to think about seasonal, and if you are publishing driven, take advantage of 4 seasons. You have to, they need winter shots. Magazines need winter shots.
Mhm.
So again, it's just being very current, or just a step ahead. Less is better, more was better years ago. So it's really, I think, important to, I don't know if we're at question yet.
How about,
Wait,
You can
Joe,
take a question.
oh, sure. Sure. Absolutely. Christmas and not Christmas.
Thanksgiving and Christmas.
did that?
yeah.
Right. Exactly. I mean, we've shot many times where you had to work just before the decorations went up, or the decorations went up 2 months ahead because we were shooting a year in advance for, say, Meredith publications. So they would set those Christmas shoots up in 2 months before Christmas.
We got our Christmas shoot done for Ruth 2 months ago for next Christmas publication pitches. So getting on it early and staying ahead of the game.
And then we took Christmas down, and we're going this summer to do the summer shoot
Yeah.
at the same house.
Yeah, that's good.
So how about a little bit on when to use a stylist and not use a stylist, which is a touchy subject. I think a lot of the times is, do we want to bring somebody on site, or do we want to do it ourselves as a designer?
Erica, I think you'd have a great perspective on this.
Oh, yeah.
So as a designer, I also moonlight as a stylist. And I've gone places where there's been a designer who, has been in the industry for 20 plus years, and he hates shooting at like the houses he completes because he doesn't want to deal with shooting them. He doesn't want to deal with the clients, having them go out of town. He doesn't, the whole thing, like making the beds, like all the bedding, all the prep work, all of the books that you need to bring, the candlesticks, all the accoutrement. So we just never shot it. And so a photographer that I was working with talked him in. He's like, talked him into using a stylist. He's like, you should do it just once. And I think they are worth their weight in gold, because you don't have to worry about all the everything. Sometimes you create spaces and the client doesn't want to buy 4 feet of coffee table books, or they don't want smalls, or they don't want, all the small stylistic items that one needs. So you have to bring that all. And a lot of times people don't want to spend the day or two go shopping for it all. You don't want to like spend all the time, the money, and then all the returns, or maybe you just have a Rolodex of items that you have. But when you have a stylist, they bring all that. They worry about the flowers. They go over like concepts with you, how it is going to look in your finished product. But I think it's a different way of looking at it, as opposed to, you're going to have options. Like, you're not giving up control necessarily, but they're going to provide you a bunch of options as the designer for you to say, maybe a little bit turned up a little, or maybe that's too much. I want it pared down to be more simple. And you don't have to do the work necessarily. You get to be the art director with the photographer sitting behind the camera, kind of.
Yeah, very good. How do we feel about last piece on during the project scope? How do we feel about aligning the scope with the time on site? A lot of times we want to push to get 30 images plus in a day versus 10. And there's always there's an often a disconnect there. I think Beth is probably good to talk on this a little bit.
Well,
How
I
do you
think
feel about
anybody
this,
who
Beth?
knows me, knows that I'm more about quality versus quantity. And, I'm been told I'm a little too meticulous, but, that was my look, and I spent a lot of time making things just so. I think if you have 20 or so shots, you have to make sure your photographer's comfortable obtaining that goal. And if your house or your office or whatever is camera ready, uh, it's really important. I think that if the shoot's going really well and you've got time, and go for it, you get extra shots, that's great. But I really think it's got to be a comfort zone between you and your photographer, what you can get for the day or 2 days, or is it only a half a day? It's just allowing enough time not to be a stressful situation.
Absolutely. And there's so many variables that happen day of shoot that could come up. The kids come home early from soccer practice and they're running through the house. The dog decides to pee on the floor and that takes a side track. Um, you go out the front door and accidentally step in poop. Actually happened. And then have to change your shoes in the car. There's so many things, Kevin. So you want to keep the day running fluidly, but the scoping ahead of time, talking with the photographer, understanding the use case, so you know how many images you're really going after, and being realistic about that. Because there's been days, and I'm sure the same for you, Beth, where it could be an 8-hour day and we've accomplished 8 photos, and there's also been an 8-hour day where we've accomplished 30 photos. So checking a property ahead of time and controlling as many variables as you can is a game changer to make sure that you're going to get it aligned and done correctly.
Well, I would also suggest that once you've made that walkthrough and you have a shot list and a basic time versus where the light is coming in and what looks great, is that you, as a designer or who's ever in charge of that photo shoot, stays a step or two ahead of the photographer. That way you'll get more out of the day. I had one client that liked to create the shot as we start right then and there. So we only got maybe 6 shots, but he didn't care. He said, I want to recreate. I want to take my time. And I went, that's fine. His expectation was 5 shots.
So expectations were aligned. That
Right.
worked,
So it
as long
was
as it was
that
talked
he
about.
wanted to build the image looking at my laptop so that he could see where he needed something. And
And I like to get there an hour or two before the photographer, even if it's early in the morning, unload all this stuff, get it in each room, do a pre-prep, like a concept already, so that when they walk in, we can look at it right away. And then if adjustments need to be made, but I like to keep things rolling. And then once we get it and they need about a half hour to get the shot, I'm already in the next room setting the next thing up.
That's good.
Yeah.
So that's what Beth's saying, like
And I think
always be a step ahead.
for sure. And we're going to touch on photo shoot day for a little bit too. But before we go too much into that aspect, I think after you do this walkthrough, after you understand the scope of the day, the real next step is an often overlooked one, which is preparing your client for what's about to happen in their house, because they just went through a big project. The house is back in order. They just moved back in, or they feel like they have it back under control. A photo shoot can be disruptive. It can be, it could be a 2-3 hour day. It could be an 8 to 10 to 12 hour day too. So it's often an overlooked one, but what are you doing to prepare your client for these long days and what's about to happen?
Yeah,
I actually have asked clients, like, I don't want to get, like throw a wrench in, the mechanics of your daily life, but I just like lightly suggest, is there a time that you're going on vacation? I could do it when you're gone. Or there's been someone that we set up their house and I said, listen, in all fairness, you have 2 dogs and 4 kids under the age of 20. I this highly suggest like maybe we get a hotel room the night before so that way we can set it up. You can be a part of seeing what it looks like, but then we don't necessarily allow the kids and the dogs to come back in, which she was fine with. She was like, no, I don't want to mess up. And normally the clients are pretty nice about not messing up. They want the finished product to look beautiful because it's their home. They paid a lot of money for their home to be beautiful. But I feel communication, I just want to touch on that what you guys were talking about earlier with the photographer, is that communication is just so key to everything, like with the photographer, between the designer, stylist, photographer, like everything you guys were talking about. I just wanted to touch on it, is that the more you communicate, the more successful your shoot's going to be. Sorry.
I always try to either have my designer ask or I ask the homeowner, what entry would you like us to come in? Where do you want my cases, my equipment? I always had furniture pads. And just warn them that there is quite a bit of lighting and stands and equipment, but to reassure them, A, we all have insurance policies. B, that we were as careful and had the bottoms of equipment taped or rubber tipped, and just to make them at ease.
yeah, and I think if as a designer, if you are the one who is making this arrangement with your customer, I take the position of, I'm the lead on the job site. I am taking care of my photographers. When they come to the job site, I've already pre-asked like what Beth just said, like what door, where would you like them to park? Is your car in the street? Are we blocking you? Like just show a lot of respect, not only to your customer, but also to your photographer. Like take care of the photographers. They will be, you really need to
Well, you really need them.
we really need them. We really, it's a two-way street, but, take care of it. If there's a certain restroom to use, like have all of these things discussed with your customer before you walk in that day. It just eliminates all of the question and the wonder. And then in terms of like, how do I prepare my customers is just, I kind of get a read, like, is this something that's going to excite them? Would they want to be there? Are they the type of person that is going to be so out of shape because I come in and I will literally like take everything off all the counters, remove all of their pictures off the shelves. And, some people don't like that. That's like very stressful for them. So you've got to read your customer just like you read them through the whole design process. And if their personality is that's going to stress them out, send them to lunch for the day, send them to the spa for the day.
There you go.
Get them out of the house in the most loving way and say, then you can come back and see all of the pictures. Other customers of mine just cannot wait. Like we'll show up and they've made soup for us and they like have, coffee and tea out. Like they're so excited to be part of the process and see this luxury part of their design, like coming into play.
We used to joke we had homeowner awards. Like
That's
to
awesome.
get them all excited. And of course, if they had coffee cake and
Aperol spritzes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
they got the award, but we did it. We had a running thing. It was kind of a joke,
Yeah.
but how did I do? Did I get the award? We'll let you know next month.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. I like that. So anticipating client pain points or
Yes.
and just knowing using that to your advantage.
Mhm.
I love it. I think we should get to the photo shoot day. This is the last step, everyone. So we made it. So this is from a styling standpoint, a productivity standpoint, a respect to the client standpoint. We can touch on a little bit more as well too. There's a lot to think about here. Erica, you were talking a little bit about styling for photos versus everyday when we were talking last week on this stuff. Play on that a little bit to start in this space.
So a lot of times when you set up a house or you're setting up your own house, your own space, you have, not everything is picture perfect, right? We all live every day. The client lives every day in their house. It's not ready for a photo shoot. Not many people live photo shoot ready in their homes. So when you're preparing for one, I always say way more than you expect you're going to bring. Like, come fully loaded. If you think that you might need 20 coffee table books for a shoot, bring 80 because it matters. Like, my trunk has been like full top to bottom, right to left of coffee table books. You don't know if you want all white might fit, or you want white and black, or you want richer tones, or just anything. Candlesticks, you want tall, medium, short, thin, like inch. You might, all your tricks of your trade you're bringing, just with styling. If there's any doubt, I'm like, oh, maybe do I have enough? No, you don't. Like, it's preparation for days. So when you're getting something photo ready, I typically like to set something up in a room like day or two before. And, I'll sit in a chair where the camera would probably be. And I was like, all right, what spaces do I see in my eye? Like, all right, that coffee table is going to need a little bit more weight on the left side than it with the right side. All right, the flowers are probably going to go here, so that's going to block that area. I use my hands a lot, which seems weird. So for like spaces, you're sitting here and you like, all right, so if I did this, which will be like the fronds of flowers, where else will I have to fit in? So it's important you put your eyes where the camera is going to be, because the camera is your eyes. So look around the room, see the missing components, and don't just bring 5 options for each component. Bring like 25, because the photographer might suggest something. You might, feel that there's something else that you need in a certain space, but I highly suggest using your eyes as before the photographer gets there, so you're prepared.
Yeah, this is the kind of stuff that brings life into these photos. We were talking earlier about that stuff. If you don't have these options and you just have to make do with what you have there, or do Beth, I know you've been in this scenario, the frantic designer that runs around the house trying to find something that might work in this given space.
Well, I think that's why the walkthrough is really kind of critical, especially if you're just starting or you haven't photographed spaces before. But to get an idea what's needed, and to know that you have to go to Williams and Sonoma. You have to go someplace and bring something in that's just different. Sometimes what's important too is not to have a chest of accessories you go to all the time, because then all of a sudden, if you're showing a portfolio, that was
like 4
this
times.
was here 4 times.
Yeah.
And I've had to tell a very seasoned designer that we used that 2 houses ago. Oh yeah. And I go back and I look at some of my archives and my history of photos, and I see that the designers used the same 12 chairs in Miami and in Detroit. So what do? You got to eliminate one of those projects when you're showing a portfolio, or your work is up on the design center's website of how to hire, designers to hire, is to make sure that walkthrough and your design prep is done so that you're not repeating yourself. And so.
Another we on photo shoot day is anticipate the unexpected. And in terms of we have a toolbox, we have a box of tricks, and we have everything in there from clips to Velcro to wipes to Windex to an ostrich feather duster. Like, everything that will happen. Like, there will be like a smudge somewhere that you just can't get out, or in the glass, or just anticipate Beth had a great idea. I had a chandelier that was in the way of a bar one day, and she's like, I have a giantess hook. Let's get that sucker tied up here. And she got it out of the way, all those little tricks, like even a curtain, like your pleats aren't straight. Bring a steamer, or sometimes we'll have like a clip behind it just
Oh, yeah.
to fake it for the photo shoot. Just try to bring again more and more than you would ever need.
I think that little toolbox is critical because you really don't want to use their homeowners or your clients go through all their Windex and all their paper towel. And so it's just nice. And you'll start, as you go, you'll start adding things. I mean, that's why I drove a truck. I had to add and add. And one thing is really cool is a squeegee. If it starts raining on your windows, and we would be out there squeegeeing. But you have to have those little things. And you just, oh no, we can take care of it. We just pull it out.
And like your own step stool, your own broom,
Oh yeah.
all of that, as much as you can show prepared to the customer and your photographer, that's how your professionalism really levels you up from everybody else.
Hand steamer, big one. I like that one a lot.
Or a good retoucher.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's
And the other thing I like to bring is hydration for us and the photographers, because we're like in a marathon that day. You never sit down, you're overthinking, like, and then all of a sudden you're like, your just peter out, and you just have to take care of each other.
Yeah, take care of your body.
Bring a cooler. We bring a cooler and drinks and all of that.
I
for
have like
everyone.
they're like orthopedic shoes. I think they're like for I think they're actually for doctors. Like you guys know the brand Figs, like from New Balance does the like for nurses and stuff. They're so comfortable. So on days that are like 12-hour days, I'm wearing my Figs, and they're only indoor shoes because you're not going to wear that stuff in and out of the client's home. But it's nice to even take care of your back, and it adds up for sure.
It does.
How about staying a step? Oh, go ahead. You got something. Go for it.
I was just gonna mention too, while the photographer is shooting, you should also, while it's set up, take that time with your phone and take a ton of imagery. Like take still lifes, take small little like 5 set, like if a light is like, kind of dancing on a plate outside and you're shooting like this cool little cafe scene or like whatever, if there's a moment, take that time. It just could be like an hour or even 30 minutes in total for like 2 days of shooting. And then, get like 20 little videos. It could literally 5-second videos, and you're adding to your social media. I mean, it's so easy for you to get all that stuff while it's completely set up. So just make sure you also think ahead for your social media and stuff and talk to the photographer, just, say, don't mind me, tell me if I'm in your way, but take that time to really do that. Cause that, you're not going to be going back a few days later and like, hey, do you mind if I put the coffee table books back and I forgot to take a picture, which you were talking about was a good point when you leave all of this stuff, right?
Yeah. So at
For,
the
like,
end
a
of the
day or
photo
two.
shoot, I'll get at the end of the photo shoot. No, I want to just mention one thing. Like, I love your idea of taking all the social pictures and doing the 5-second reels and everything. I personally don't have time on a photo shoot day to do that. So I delegate it out. So I always bring someone on my team with me. So while I'm working with a photographer, they're behind the scenes doing it. So again, we're like keeping the pace, we're staying focused, and I know I'm getting all the material that I need. But yeah, so Eric, what were we gonna say?
You were talking about how to like leave also at the
yeah,
photo
so
shoot to leave it all there for a
I
day.
leave it all there for 24 hours. The customer knows that however we've staged the space, I'm going to leave it 24 hours because we are showing them a different look, and it's another sales opportunity. And at the end of the 24 hours, we're like, whatever you love and you must have, yes, you can buy this from us. So, and it's they're seeing it in a whole new light. Like it builds the excitement again.
It also helps pay for the photo shoot.
Yes,
Yeah.
it does.
There you go. Love it. How about showing appreciation to the client at the end of the day?
Oh, my favorite part. I love spoiling my customers. I just, because I'm so thankful for them. You've gone through this lengthy process and being in their personal space and designing their home, and 9 out of 10 times they feel like family at this point. So, try to think of we like to do it like a nice handwritten note somewhere, some flowers. If you have flowers on the job site, we always leave those, or a special gift. Like if there's we like to do like a little monogram blanket or some custom napkins, just something that's elevated and personalized just for them. And sometimes we won't even give it to them, but we like sneak it somewhere in the house. So when they're going to bed at night, there's something on their bed for them, or a little box of chocolates, or like the unexpected.
That's nice. I like it.
Mhm.
Another thing you can do is you can take the imagery once you get it from the photographer and give them, which I've done, have it printed out, like unreal, glossy, pretty, because, they might want it years down the road. Their kids are, this is mom and dad's house and they, redid it. Or another thing that I did on a project was there was an estate and I had a book made for them of all the imagery. So that way they had something that was a keepsake from the before images to the after, and some, imagery along the way as like a thank you. So you can, use the photography that you're spending money on too to be part of the gift for them as like a keepsake for the like an heirloom keepsake for the family.
Love it. Is there anything else that you guys want to touch on for day of the photo shoot before we go to some Q&A stuff?
Try to have fun.
Exactly. That's what I was just
Like
gonna
this is
say.
like serious. Like it doesn't like you're being creative. You have to try to
Yeah.
have fun. Like,
Yeah,
this is
is
supposed
definitely
to be like the end. You're at the
This is
finish
like the
line.
celebration.
That's the finish line. Yeah. You're there.
Yeah, like you're burying your fruit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lovely.
I wanted to touch base on one thing.
Yeah.
Just a quick thing. How many are interior designers or here today? Okay. One thing is you can partner with your partners on the job, the architect or the builder or the cabinet maker. What I say is, as a designer, take the lead. You have the sense of style and what the project should look like. Partnering with other trades helps you, the cost of the photo shoot. Also, that it opens up a can of worms for licensing, but I would definitely talk to your photographer way prior to the shoot. Identify if there's partners and usages, but it is a good way to only have that house photographed once and have it photographed the way you want it photographed, not the way somebody who was critical in the design build, but might not have the savvy of what it should really look like.
Absolutely.
Also, back to that made me think of partnering. Sometimes you need one photo. You're walking around the design center here and you're like, that is the piece of art I need. That is the accessory need that I want that chair. So partner with the vendors, especially here. We've been able to take some on the day of the photo shoot, or, pick it up the day before. But as a thank you to that vendor, be sure you are tagging them in your social media. And that is a huge thank you to them. It's getting them out there and recognition, and just a huge appreciation to them. Always circle back and show gratitude to ever let you borrow stuff as well.
That's good.
Very good. So let's open it up.